Everybody loves a perfect theme song, a melody that stays inside your heart. You might have a nice show and others may think so, but if you want a great connection right from the start, then you gotta have a perfect theme song, so everyone can sing along from home. And while they are singing, the ratings you'll bring in, all because the melody is stuck in their head. You can make the bridge sound Jewish, that would be fine, long as it's familiar but newish. Everyone's falling in line, all because you got a perfect theme song, accompanying the audience for years. And when the show is over, it won't be the end, because the perfect theme song's a life-lasting friend. And speaking of friends, here's your host and MC, 'cause Mondays with Marcus is now a live stream. Whoa, 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 yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Just like that, it's Monday again. I'm so glad you're joining us here today for Mondays with Marcus, a live stream of consciousness. I am your host, Marcus Goldhaber. I am so thrilled today this is not a news show, okay? Fair warning, not a news show, but a very exciting piece of news came across my feed today, and I wanted to share it in case you haven't seen this. It's a little out there, literally, no pun intended. But have you seen Mars lately? Okay. So we, a while ago, landed a robot on Mars, and we've been doing this kind of stuff, NASA. We, of course, because I feel very affiliated and close to NASA, just by support only. And NASA had this robot landed on Mars with the intention of launching a helicopter. And today it was done automatically, remotely. And we had liftoff of a helicopter flying on Mars, another planet, in case for those of you who don't know what Mars is. This excited me. And look, there we go. We got a graphic of what it looked like. This is the robot that dropped that landed on the surface. And then I think we have another graphic I wanted to show you. This is the helicopter. This blew my mind. And I know it's not, maybe the sexiest piece of news, but man, what an exciting feel-good moment it was to see that, and the implications. And of course, my thinking is that now everyone else out there is like, oh, check out what the humans are doing. Hey, look, they had liftoff with the helicopter. Anyway, again, not a news program, so that's the only. If this were a news program, you'd be getting pieces of news like this just in: toothpaste sales are through the roof because people are now faced with their own breath from all the mask wearing, and so that's the kind of news I would report. Anyway, not a news show. Edward R. Murrow, I am not. But anyway, good night and good luck. So that's what I have to report for you today. It's been a really exciting journey. And speaking of exciting journeys, here we are live streaming, and that's still somewhat new for me. And I hope you're enjoying this journey that I'm on. And you are certainly a huge part of it. And I have teammates, and I want to introduce you to my teammate here, who's helping me put this all together and is in control, the master of knobs and buttons. Please welcome Mr. Seth Asa to the program for a quick hello. Hello, Seth.
Hi, how are you?
Seth, I'm super great. I'm really excited. I'm inspired, and I can't wait. I feel like, I don't know if it's going to be the Vulcans or who's going to come, but that's a Star Trek reference for all those out there. I know you get it. But, there you go.
Live long and prosper, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you. And to you as well. How are you? How's your week going? How's your day? How's your life?
Doing all right. Another sleepy day here in Pennsylvania. People are mowing their lawns. It's a beautiful, beautiful afternoon. Beautiful Monday.
Oh, that sounds nice. If I had a lawn, I'd mow it. Of course, the only lawn I'd probably, if I started mowing the lawn closest to me, I'd get arrested. That would be Central Park. So, I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But if you have to get arrested for something, I suppose mowing the lawn is, Anyway, I digress. Tangents tangents are dangerous and tempting for me. So, well, Seth, you're fantastic, and you're going to hang with us for the next throughout the remainder of the show in case anyone has any technical questions or anything else that they want to ask you. So, thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here with Seth. You'll hear me reach out to Seth for mention his beautiful name from here and moment to moment. I couldn't do this without him. So, now let's get right to it. The whole point of this show is for me to be able to interact with other artists and share their experiences with you and what it's been like for them during this past year and a half. We're at a turning point, maybe, hopefully, right now. And this transition is very unique and it's different for everyone. For some people, it's fantastic and they can't wait. For some people, it's been a grief ridden journey the whole time, and there's lots of struggling and anxiety and apprehension. And wherever you fit along that spectrum is okay. So, in the spirit of all of that space, and I wanted to reach out to as many artists as I could think of that I wanted to chat with. And there are people who have been live streaming from the beginning. And for some folks, this is going to be their first time live streaming. My guest today is no stranger to live streaming, and she is an incredible force of nature. Uh, Singer, well, she says she's not a singer, but I've heard her sing a little bit. I can tell she's shaking her head, but pianist, composer, educator, author, mother, wife, entrepreneur, the list goes on. I could spend the whole show just listing her credentials and reading her resume, but I'd rather introduce you to her. Please put your right and left hand together several times for Miss Monika Herzig.
Ooh.
Hello, Monika.
Hello.
I'm so thrilled that you are here today, coming to us from Indiana, correct?
Bloomington, Indiana.
Okay, Bloomington, Indiana. Fantastic. My father went to Purdue. Did I just spark? Is that a rival of IU, or I don't know?
It is. It
It is.
is.
Okay.
It's the two rivals.
All right. And that's all the time we have today, folks. So I'm just kidding. Uh, so, Monika, how are you?
I'm quite all right. I got my second vaccine today.
Oh, Mazel Tov. Fantastic. And how are you feeling?
Completely fine. I'm ready to rock.
So fantastically. That's so fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that. I'm in the middle right now. I got my first shot at the beginning of this month, and I'm getting my second one. I did this for my Star Wars fans. I scheduled it on. They gave me a choice. I didn't know you could have a choice. I scheduled mine for May the 4th.
May the 4th.
So that's hopefully I get all that extra. But it's an exciting when you get that first shot, you feel okay. Now you've had both, right? This is your second, so you feel pretty, like you said, strong and ready to rock. Well, I know rock music wasn't exactly your first foray.
That was smooth.
Thank you, thank you. We go for segues here. We try and be very seamless. But so I know I've heard you talk about your journey to music, and it's so inspiring. I know you grew up classically trained, and then your desire for community to be around other musicians was partly what laid your sort of path to jazz. But I wanted to know if you could just dive in a little bit more. But there are other genres, obviously, that you can play with other musicians, and so why jazz? What drew you? Who drew you? What were the first inspirations?
Maybe it's not such a high aspiration as community building. It was more like trying to be popular with the boys.
Okay.
But meaning when you learn piano, it's a pretty lonely business because you're always by yourself practicing. And I realized that this jazz thing, it was something where you could like get together and you can do it simultaneously. It's not, if you do the rock thing again and the pop thing, it's fun and it's cool, but you still have to learn something the way it's supposed to be or it should be and then put it together. But this jazz thing lets you do things together. And that process, that's really what fascinated me, that you're allowed to come in and see what happens.
Right. Organized chaos.
Organized chaos.
Yeah. I'm with you. That's really what drew me to it as well. But so you what was the so you started out performing, right? And then you transitioned eventually to, and not exclusively because you still perform. But when did you make the leap into education and start teaching?
It was always parallel. I got an undergrad degree in secondary teaching in Germany. And then I went on, I got 2 music ed degrees, a master's and a doctorate. So, the ed was always in there. And, I think these days you rarely find musicians that are not partially into the teaching and passing it on. I think these two things so go together. But yeah, I come from like generations of school teachers. My mom is a school
Oh,
teacher, my brother is a school teacher, my aunt is a school teacher. It's like you didn't have another choice than going
wow.
into teaching somehow.
God bless your family. Teachers to me are the greatest gift that we have. I mean, you ensure and enshrine the legacy of what we've created, as a race. When they're looking at us, lifting helicopters off on Mars, of course, this is what they're going to say. They're going to say, "Find us the teachers. You're going to be first contact." Because when they have questions about humanity, they're going to look to the educators. What is this jazz thing we've heard so much about? I'm telling you, kind of a. Anyway, I digress, as I mentioned. You've written a lot about improvisation, and I know you've got a project going on right now where you're researching the skill set of improvisation and how it's applying to certain people's coping mechanisms and this transition for live streaming and as we all have had to reinvent our lives, it's been unique to each aspect and element of life. And for musicians, it's we've had our own journey to it. So what has been your experience with that? Have you had any findings from the research that you've done?
Well, I actually just did a TED talk this weekend on this creative mindset, and there's so many parallels between what jazz musicians do and this generating of ideas and the whole entrepreneurship or anything, meaning you're creating your future by generating ideas. And there's some interesting research that shows how we're all born with genius level creativity. 98% of us score on that NASA test of creativity. As 4 and 5 year olds, 98% of us score a genius level. And then
Hmm.
it turns around, and by adult, there's only 2% left that score at that same level.
Oh my God.
It's very scary. There's George Land did that research, and he showed it. But what happens is, talking about education, is that this free idea generation part of the brain that gets little by little gets canceled out because we're not allowed to do that in school. The moment you form an idea, you have to evaluate it. Is a good or a bad one, or should I say it or not say it? It gets censored, which is another part of the brain that should not interfere in that process. But we're taught to let them interfere. And then little by little, it's like muscles, they, get floppy and lose their capacities. And
Atrophy, right. That's insane. And so do you incorporate that? I mean, from the onset of your classes, I mean, I imagine you're teaching musicians, so you're starting from a baseline of creativity in places that that a lot of other subjects might not necessarily. But do you approach that with in your curriculum where it's more of an open, less less evaluating and whatnot and critiquing?
I actually teach mostly future arts administrators and future music industry professionals. I mean, they come from all backgrounds. Most have some music background, but I have specifically one arts entrepreneurship class, and I make them throughout the semester keep a journal, make improv exercises, and right now we're testing if it really does something, if it helps something. So fingers crossed that it actually has an impact on it.
Yeah. So back to these 4-year-old geniuses that we used to be.
Right.
Who does any of the improvisational skill set that musicians practice regularly. Is the theory, and have you found that that has been applied to this transition in the pandemic, where you've experienced or you've heard of certain success stories where you can directly connect one's ability to improvise musically or however else, and then it's helped them through a specific challenge?
Yeah. So I early on, I thought, okay, it's going to be the jazz musicians that will be at the forefront of this because they keep practicing that muscle. So they're throwing out the idea. So let's see what they're doing, and maybe that'll give us a picture of what's going on and what's the future.
Mm.
And various things, from the teaching aspect to the different performing and all the live streaming. One great example, the Caleb Chapman is a great friend of mine, and he runs a music school in Utah, the Sound House. And he was able to turn a completely terrestrial music school into a virtual powerhouse in just a few days, but by figuring out how to do new teaching systems. And so I thought he was a great example of just moving forward, from one day being devastated, all my income is gone, everything I do, to pivoting in 24 hours. Okay, how can we create this virtual music school and do it? And same with the streaming, the different models you've seen popping up, from Emmett's Monday night hangs to others, or like you do, with the conversations and just all kinds of really cool new programming.
Yeah, I mean, it really, for me, it's necessity, right? I got to a point where I didn't, I didn't jump online right away. I was trying to manage my screen time before the pandemic, and now it's like, nope, that's where everything must be now. And that was a hard transition. Have you been teaching this whole time and doing your virtual
Well,
classes?
so I had 4 different classes I had to pivot into a virtual format. And it's been really an experimentation process in what works best, in terms of interaction, because I noticed a lot of students just losing the connection and dropping off and having a really hard time to stick with it. Even you put out the weekly exercises, the things to do, they
Mhm.
just don't have the connection because we're not next to each other in the classroom. So I was just experimenting with all ways of doing breakout rooms and working together on a Google Doc and doing little improv exercises on Zoom and
How do you
everything.
do that? How do you improv and find that musical I mean, now there's a lot of progress that's been made with latency and whatnot, but how do you, as a teacher, how do you exercise your improv muscles on Zoom with the delays?
Well, not necessarily musically. So, finding ways of tossing off words and ideas, or
Mm, got
have
it.
a scenario. I was telling them the other day, I run up and down this in the morning, and the last stretch is a street, and I look on the side of, and I see all kinds of things lying around on the side of the street. We live out in the country.
Mm.
And I noticed that it's lined with those little whiskey bottles, and every day there's a fresh one. And so somebody is driving up there throwing their whiskey bottle out every day. And so we were just painting a scenario. What kind of person could that be that has the urge of just before they go home, down this thing and throw it out of the window? And you can go in all kinds of directions with that.
Yeah. Certainly, someone who's, I would say, not someone who's recycling. They're not building a collection project. Um, so I wanted to ask you, you've spearheaded an incredible project that is very important to me. When I first heard you talk about it was at the Jazz Congress, I think 2020, right before everything shut down. You were on a panel, if I remember, it was called Sisterhood on Stage,
Mhm.
and it was a really a beautiful panel. It was so informative, and talking a lot about equality for women in jazz. And there you go. Look at the shirt. Um, and so I know that you've had you've put out a couple of albums. You have a project called Sheroes that I would love to hear you talk about. But in as you, I guess, I mean, first, tell us what Sheroes is. Tell us where that all came from.
So, obviously I'm not exactly what you imagine on first thought of a jazz musician. Usually, I what Marion McPartland said when she first came here, she was told when she first played at the Hickory House after her first review, said, well, she plays pretty good, but she's got 3 strikes against her. She's white and female and from somewhere else. And and so I had those same 3 strikes against me. And coming up, I'm of the older generation that went through the 90s and the 2000s of where it wasn't a movement yet. And so you notice, the difference in opportunities. So one of my goals was to find ways to equalize some of the opportunities and change the perception that, you don't look at me or somebody else and think, that person looks different. I wonder, I wonder how it's going to sound like, but it's just, oh yeah, look, there's people on stage, whatever. So the Sheroes was formed out of that, and I wanted to showcase the best of the best. So I got all my best New York friends together, and we started recording in 2014. And we got 3 albums out. We were in the middle of our release tour of the 3rd album when we had to turn around.
You and I actually we talked about you bringing the album, I think, for a release at 623 because you had a couple of days you were going to be in town, and that was in the middle of March. I think your date is crazy. Right. It's coming back to me. Right, this the beautiful album, Eternal Dance, and we're going to hear from that. And I think your dates were like the 16th and 17th or something, and we had to shut our doors on the 15th. And
that was our last performance, the Keystone Corner on the 15th. That's when we turned around.
Yeah, it's when everything changed. It's a beautiful album. It's a beautiful project, and I'm so was so inspired to hear you talk. And I wanted to ask you now. I mean, a lot's obviously happened, and everything that we were pursuing has gotten sidetracked, right? So everything looks differently, but you're such a force. I know that a lot of what you were doing probably has continued. And so my question to you is, what do you think is the biggest obstacle, and what is the most important next step in terms of achieving equality and equity for women in jazz?
In the education system, again, I still think one of the most important things is to have your role models, your teacher role models, be of all kinds. And looking at faculties at major universities, including ours, where I'm not part of it, I'm in the other department. Everywhere else, full-time instrumental jazz faculty is very underrepresented. It'll take a conscious effort to say, we need to, equalize that, because that's what future students look at and see as the model to enter the world. So that's one of the things I just really want to press, that anybody in hiring positions working on that to really make a conscious effort. And then just on stages, more than tokenism, saying, oh, we got one band on the stage that's female, now we got our bases covered. Right. But in Europe, Sweden is on the forefront again. They have to have every festival 50-50.
That's great. That's fantastic. Could we do something like that here? What's preventing us from doing that here?
I'm not sure we want to do it as a mandate. Sometimes it's also then you have to push maybe some who would be eligible and of course better in quality out, but just a conscious effort of saying, okay, it's not just one. How does your lineup look like? Did you consider all the options and make it optimal? Often it's just not being conscious about it.
Right. Well, I would love to hear from the album. I'd love to hear you play. I know everyone who's watching would love to hear you play. And I assume we're going to hear something from Eternal Dance from that
Yeah,
album.
I mean, I was when you talked about the Mars thing, I was like, yes. I actually picked a tune that's called "Fly High,"
Oh yeah, absolutely.
but it,
Perfect.
I initially wrote it actually for my kid that's in circus school in Philadelphia right now. Finishing up, it's like your kid comes to you and says, "I'm going to go to circus school," and you're going, "Sure."
Right. Okay. Okay. Sure you are.
But the thing is, if both parents are jazz musicians, you can't really say, "Well, can't you get a real job?"
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, Monika Herzig
So
with
fly high.
Hi Hi. Take it away.
Yay.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. That's called Fly High,
Fly
right?
high.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And your album is a big band. You got, I think, what, 6 or 7 musicians in your band on this album, right?
On the album, it's even more. So we got Jamie Baum on the flute, Raoud Regev on the trombone, Jennifer Vincent on the bass, Rosa Avila on the drums, and Lakeisha Benjamin is playing saxophone, Myra Casales on the percussion, Lainey Stern on the guitar, Akua Dixon on the cello. So it's quite a cast.
That's amazing. And then you're performing out with it, hopefully coming up soon. We have some information we're going to throw up on the screen for everyone, how they can get a copy of this album. And that is Eternal Dance, Monika Herzig. You also see Monica's Venmo there. If you want to show some support, just directly write to Monika. We have that wonderful opportunity now to do that. Monika has a ton of merchandise as well, as you can see on the piano when we get back there. You can get that at monikaherzig.com. And then she has a performance coming up. You might have seen there at the Women in Jazz Festival in Halle, Germany. I joked with Monika earlier. I had to ask how to pronounce the name of that city, because when I first read it, I was like, oh, it's probably, Halle. And for me, it comes out naturally like the bread we eat on Shabbat. I was like, oh, it's in Halle, Germany. Okay, no problem. She corrected me. It's Halle, Germany. And the dates on that we confirmed so far. It's going to be May, correct me if I'm wrong, in the 7th to 16th. Is that right?
So yeah, I mean it's quite an ordeal. Obviously Germany just shut down, got on the lockdown again. So
Yeah.
we've been going back and forth. It's an emotional roller coaster. You're on, you can't, we're on, we can't, we going. So as of today, we're on, and Rayout's gonna perform with her band on the 11th, and then we are performing together and sharing with saxophonist from Serbia, Jasna Jovicevic, on the 15th, and then we'll go on to Nuremberg and Munich and Cologne. So
Wow.
fingers crossed.
I absolutely will cross all my fingers and toes for you. And also because if you're performing out live, it obviously, and hopefully it obviously means that it's going to be safe enough to do so. And
Well, it's mostly live streamed from the
oh,
clubs.
okay. Well, listen, however we can get it right now, I think people, I ask this a lot when my guests come on, and when tragedy hits and crisis hits, our first responders are incredible in how they respond immediately and instinctually save lives and get people to life-saving situations. And then inevitably the energy turns to artists and musicians not soon after, for telethons and concerts and benefits and any kind of outreach, for that kind of support and to get messages out and missions pursued. And so to that end, I've been asking some guests, how they felt as second responders in our society. And to that end, you are very much that, as you'll be bringing music to people, even if it's live streamed. It's new music, and it's such meaningful music, considering your mission and to change the perspective, and the landscape, the gender landscape across the jazz world. So I wish you lots of luck. And for all those who are watching, please go to monikaherzig.com and support Monika in all her efforts in creating this beautiful album. We here at Mondays with Marcus, we also have some merchandise. I'm not going to go through all of it. There are a bunch of CDs. CDs. Do you remember what CDs are? I mean, Monika, I know does. Look at all these
You play
CDs.
frisbee.
I know. Oh, we just cut away. You were just showing your yeah, but the physical.
The
I
frisbee.
know, frisbees, right, frisbees, coasters, wall art, but, you put it's like, "We'll play Go Fish. Do you have any, I'll trade you an Eternal Dance for a." So I have all these albums, and, most of them have original music on them, and, the one I like to highlight specifically is this veterans album. It's called "Carry You On," and it's probably upside down. There you go, how about that? "Carry You On." And this album, I recorded, with a mission behind it to bridge the disconnect between civilians and military veterans, and letting music be the common ground for us to tackle some very difficult conversations. How do you approach a conversation with a veteran who you may not know and want to express gratitude for, or just let them know that if they need anything, you're there? There are a lot of civilians in this country that are willing, ready, and able to help and maybe don't know how. And likewise, there are a lot of veterans that want to reach out to civilians, but maybe don't know how, or because of what they're struggling with, or want to report how they're thriving and initiatives that they're pursuing. It's a very nuanced arena. And so we created this project called Carry You On, based on conversations and interviews that I had within the military community and family members as well, to help tell stories that would bring everyone to the table through music. And so the album called Carry You On comes with merch. So we had a hat made. We teamed up with a veteran-owned apparel company called Oscar Mike. And so we get these great trucker hats, the Carry You On trucker hats. Also have hoodies. The hoodies are by a different apparel company, also veteran-owned. Their name is called Broken Gear. So we got these nice hoodies right here with the logo on them. And then, of course, the all important t-shirt. So, and then Seth will do me a favor and toss up the graphic. I had to show you the real things to prove to you that they actually exist and they're not just a graphic there. So you can head on over to my website if you like any of that information, and you can pick yourself up a copy of any of the albums, as well as the merchandise, the shirts and whatnot. The other thing I'd like to invite you to do, if you are having a great time here with Mondays with Marcus and you'd like to see it continue, you can support us directly. And here's how you can do that. And Seth will toss up that information as well. As you can see, we've got a PayPal situation and Venmo. And then, of course, signing up to subscribe to our YouTube channel would be great as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for the first part of our show. I hope you've had a great time getting to know Monika. I know I have. Next week, we have the incredible Emma Larson coming to join us in. That's going to be on the 26th. Great singer, pianist, and songwriter. Is this sounding a little Mr. Rogers-y? I hope so. I love Mr. Rogers. Now, remember, we have an after party coming up, and Monika's going to stick around for that. And she's going to play again, and I'm going to ask her to share a secret that she's never told anyone else before on camera. I haven't even told her I was going to do that. But first, we've come together for a moment today, young ones and some who would rather not say. Finding connection isn't easy, I know, and that's why I created this show. See you next week, unless you stick around for the after party. Bye-bye. Everybody loves a perfect theme song, a melody that stays inside your heart. You might have a nice show and others may think so, but if you want a great connection right from the start, then you gotta have a perfect theme song, so everyone can sing along from home. And while they are singing, the ratings you'll bring in, all because the melody is stuck in their head. You can make the bridge sound Jewish, that would be fine, long as it's familiar but newish, everyone's falling in line. All because you got a perfect theme song, accompanying the audience for years. And when the show is over, it won't be the end, because the perfect theme song's a life-lasting friend. And speaking of friends, here's your host and MC, 'cause Mondays with Marcus is now a live stream. Whoa, 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 yeah. Life may be golden, life may be grand. You make the rules of the game. When you are old and you don't understand why nobody's holding your little hand, just take a deep breath and go for a walk. Now you may be gloomy when you're alone and there's no kiss on your cheek. Or when you are blue and you wanna go home and sit in a room that you feel is your own, just take a deep breath and go for a walk. 'Cause when you're walking, your mind can clear out all of those thoughts stuck in your head. Everyone's talking about the troubles we face in the world. Now life can be sweet, just follow your feet. Maybe one day we'll all gather around and change the rules of the game. Hunger and AIDS would never be found in a world without hate. What a beautiful sound. Just take a deep breath and go for a walk. Cause when you're walking, your mind can clear out all of those thoughts stuck in your head. Everyone's talking about the troubles we face in the world. Now life can be sweet, just follow those feet. Oh, maybe one day we'll all gather around and change the rules of the game. COVID and AIDS would never be found in a world without hate. What a beautiful sound. Just take a deep breath and go for a walk. Come on and take a deep breath and go for a walk. Welcome back to the after party, everyone. That was a tune I wrote called A Walk, and it seems appropriate right about now. I hope you're all getting outside as much as you can and going for as many walks as you can. That featured Mr. Martin Wind on the solo there, and Mr. John Davis on piano, and Marcello Pelleteri on drums from an album I recorded a while ago called Take Me Anywhere. And if we were open business as usual, now we'd be having the after party at room 623. I mentioned it before, as Monika and her Shiros will be coming to perform there. Room 623, what is that? That's what room 623 is. Thank you, Seth. The room 623 is a beautiful speakeasy jazz club that I launched back in 2019, and we were just coming up on our 1-year anniversary when things had to shut down. And so we closed the doors on March the 15th. April the 5th is our anniversary date. And we are planning to reopen. That's great news. I'm thrilled to be able to report that. And if you'd like to help us out until we get there, of course, there's our PayPal link and our website, and you can check out more information about the club and our upcoming acts and just everything that's going on. at Room 623. The idea is to house spontaneous, positive, healing live jazz in a very communal setting. It's very immersive, no fourth wall. And so you really are part of it. The whole idea was inspired by me hanging out in St. Nick's Pub and Lennox Lounge and the old Zinc Bar back when it was down on Houston. So um, it's, and speaking of course, Room 623 and performing there, as I mentioned before, Monika Herzig is still with us. And so we're going to bring her back to the after party. Hello, Monika. Welcome to the after party.
As long as it's not the afterlife.
No, and if I can figure that one out, I think I'd have that's a stream of a different color. But we are going to be welcoming your questions into this portion. We hope we get lots of those from Monika. You'll notice that we have a comment box for you. If you're on Facebook, of course, you know the comment section pretty well. If you're on YouTube, you probably know it as well. But please put your questions in the box there, and it'll come up there, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. I wanted to just connect with you, Monika, about one in particular thing that we have in common that I didn't realize. I think I heard you mention this a while ago when you did Gail Boyd's alternative venues for jazz. When you did her talk, and you mentioned that you're an active runner and that you run. And now I think I heard 7 miles a day.
True.
Right. Okay. So I mean, I'm in like the 5-mile club right now, and I have been for a
Pretty
while.
good.
And then many years ago, like I was back in 2014, and I run regularly, but in terms of distance, I trained for the Boston Marathon, and I ran the marathon. And it was like, and as soon as I finished, I was like, this is great. I've achieved so much, and there was a meaningful mission behind it for when we ran it, my sister and I. And I was very excited about continuing with my mileage. And I said, you know what? I don't need to be up in the 20s on a regular basis, but I thought if I can, stay in the 15 to 18 range, I was like, that'd be great. And then days went by and weeks went by, and it became more and more challenging to keep my mileage up. So I have so much respect for you, knowing what it took for me to increase my mileage on a regular basis, and then the commitment, and I was training. So to hear you run 7 miles a day, um, uh, just for your own, assuming that you're not training for anything specifically.
No, I'm not training. But
That's
it's a
amazing.
great way to, as I said, to just let the mind flow. There's something about running, and then the ideas just keep going, and you can't, get distracted by other stuff.
It's so true. It's so true. That's what drew me to running in the first place. And again, I guess I have to, but and I'm sure you get this a lot. Hearing that, and it reminded me of, what I was saying to myself after the marathon, and newly inspiring, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. You've inspired me again to look back at my regimen and say, all right, maybe I can just add half a mile this day, and then add another half a mile, or a quarter mile, or whatever it is, because I would like to get my mileage up. And now, is this literally every day you go out running 7 miles, or do you have a day off?
Well, Sunday mornings I need to play church services, and so I need to get myself there. So I'm giving myself the Sundays because I don't have enough time. but
Wow.
it's kind of out of necessity because, as I mentioned, we live out in the country.
Yeah.
So there's only one way you can actually make something that's a circle without turning around, and that's that route.
Interesting.
So I don't have a choice.
Interesting. Wow. Have you ever run marathons?
Just like for fun, mini
Fun.
stuff, but not.
Yeah. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I think I'll run a marathon. Yeah, why not? Just for fun.
Well,
Unbelievable.
not like, like the small, like the 10K, or I have not done anything large at all.
Hmm. Well, that's still incredible that you're still averaging about 40 plus miles a week. So that's amazing. Well, kudos to you. Thank you for that. And if I can, I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, before we leave the running, do you listen to music? Are you listening to nature when you run?
Yeah, no, I don't even take my phone along.
Beautiful. That's amazing. So it's just you and the trees and the
And the
nature.
birds.
And the birds.
The birds in the spring, they have some interesting calls, they tell you all kinds of stuff. And then last spring, I had this one, it's like little blackbirds, and he must have had like a nest close to on a tree where I was running through. Every time at the same spot, he would like start attacking. I would run and he'll have these dive things 3 times at least, and then sit there and complain every day, every morning.
It's hard being a bird. People think it's just all flying around and looking pretty and graceful, but it's tough. A friend of mine, I'm going to plug her project right now. I think you would love it, especially since you have a connection with birds. She started a bird broadcast network on YouTube, and it's fantastic. She shot this little short comedy film, and it's all narrated, and it's real live birds, and it's footage that she took of birds, and she produced this bird beauty pageant, and it's fantastic. It's I think you really love it, and you just go to, if you search Bird Broadcast Network, BBN on YouTube, you find the channel. It's a really fun show. So we're getting a question here, and I'm going to actually make it a little bit of a hybrid, because you've talked about how for you, I mean, I guess not to repeat myself, but you've talked about how performance and education have always been hand in hand for you. So I want to toss in, what have you learned? So the question is, when the pandemic is over, how hard will it be to juggle your teaching and your performance? What I want to know is, adding on to that, what have you learned during, and how have you adapted during the pandemic that you will carry with you into the next chapter? So what's going to stick around that's worked for both of those areas?
Hmm. I mean, I had to juggle that before, so the juggling is not new.
Right.
My advantage is if you teach college level, then you have specific semesters, 15 weeks, and summertime is a good time. There's nearly 4 months of freedom
Mm.
of things to do. And then, you always juggle with the projects and the time. It works. But I mean, we discovered so many good things also over the last year, especially finding ways to connect if you're not at the same space and place. And that is so much more possible of being somewhere saying, well, today we'll have our class, we'll do it over Zoom, and it's just as productive because we learned how to do it, and it's okay. So I think that will help. And I found on some of the online platforms, I started having discussions every week on a discussion forum on our Canvas side, class side, and made it mandatory that everybody has to contribute. And I found that it gave everybody now a voice. Often in the classroom, you only have the 2 or 3 that speak up and say something, and the rest,
Mm.
is on their phone. And
Right.
but I saw everybody's voice and background, actually learn more about each one. So some of those things I definitely want to keep. I want to make teaching a hybrid thing. That's when, if you get together in person, it's really special. Just like putting information on you, we can do that with online, with recorded stuff, but actually getting to talk to each other, that's precious now, and we can use the time better. And same with performing. I think we'll have a different perspective of how special it is, and there's no more this is just another gig, let's just go through it. But all of these are specials, and the way you pick them are special, realizing some things are worth it and some things are not worth it, and then making it your time, putting them in a wise frame, making decisions on what's worth and what's not worth.
Yeah. I want to, if I may, again, your attitude is always so positive every time I hear you speak. And it not only comes from an obvious love for what you do as a teacher and musician, and creator and entrepreneur and everything. It's it's very it's very inspiring. I've said that before about you, and so what I wanted to ask you, I mentioned at the top of the show that there are a lot of people who are struggling with this transition into virtual life, and amidst dealing with loss and illness, and that maybe they were dealing with before the pandemic, that it's exposed other vulnerabilities. Um, there are just a lot of people who are struggling in a lot of different ways. And I know, and you've been open about, and feel free to, take it in a different direction if you'd like, but you've been pretty open about the fact that you are a cancer survivor.
Mm.
And and not only is that incredible, and I'm so glad that you are, um, but I also, when I was, I also learned that that the timing of when you were faced with cancer treatments and when you were fighting cancer, you were fighting your cancer just before having to face the pandemic. So you you started beating cancer, and then you presumably beat cancer, or where you're now a survivor, and that's amazing. And now you're faced with the challenges associated with the pandemic. And I wanted to ask you, how where did you get your strength from? How did you navigate those moments? If you had a role model, if you didn't, what was your source of strength? And perhaps, what advice would you have for those who are still struggling on how to figure out this transition?
Mm. That's an interesting thought. I think a lot of it is just loving what I do, that I feel lucky if I get to play music or share music. It fuels me. That whole energy of being with people and sharing with people is the fuel to move forward. And I'm also, I during the pandemic, I was pretty lucky that my husband is also a musician and we were able to do this together. I think I'm trying to imagine how much harder it is if you're confined by yourself. We at least got stuck as a family and we still like each other.
That helps.
which is a good thing. So a lot of fuel, a from loving what you do and choosing the projects you do because you love them, and just having wonderful supportive people around you. I'm
Mm.
noticing right now I get surrounded by the sun because it's coming in so
It's
here
beautiful.
to
We
glow.
love the lighting. Your tech crew that you have there is fantastic. The way that they've got, a whole MGM studio set up there. Um, Beautiful effects. We really appreciate that at Mondays with Marcus. Uh, really bringing things up a notch. Um, well, thank you for that. I would love to hear you play some more, and from this album, and then we can talk a little bit more. I have a lightning round for you as well, and that should be a little bit of fun too. So, without further ado, folks, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the incredible Monika Herzig.
I'm gonna play not from the album, but Indiana based.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Indiana.
Back home again.
That's so fitting, of course. Tune was written in 1917, and here we are hearing it in 2021. Now, if I told you, 100 plus years from now, people are going to be listening to Eternal Dance.
Well, maybe something. Who knows?
Listen, they have to. I mean, it's in the title. What I know you did that. I see what you did there. Very good marketing. It's like Mel Brooks always said, it's merchandising, merchant. But in all seriousness, why Eternal Dance?
Well, I mean that was all the music that was written on that album, and the original music was during those times when I was struggling with the cancer treatment. And it was at the same time actually that my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, passed away from lung cancer. So this specific tune, Eternal Dance, was written for him because he was such a happy, upbeat guy, always go lucky, played his bass, and we were just thinking, he'll keep dancing somewhere.
Uh, It's
Hopefully.
beautiful. I'm gonna listen to it now with different ears. That's great. I mean, I've heard the album and I loved it, and now I'm gonna go back and listen more. There's so much meaning behind what you write, and I love and this is the first time I've actually gotten to see you play up close and personal like this, which is really nice too. I can see a lot of your influences and the classical as well. You kind of toyed at that. But it's a beautiful selection. Thank you for playing that. All right, I got a quick lightning round for you. You ready?
I'll try.
Here we go. Favorite superpower?
Run as fast as you can.
Nice. Okay. Favorite pizza topping?
Olives.
Olives. Okay. For those listening at home, Monica's address is. I'm just kidding. All right. Swedish fish or gummy bears?
Gummy bears.
Nice. Okay. Chocolate in the morning or breakfast for dinner?
Chocolate in the morning.
Nice. Nice. All right. If you had to pick one cereal for the rest of your life,
Well, I don't eat any cereal, so that would be hard.
oh
A
my goodness.
good hearty muesli.
Oh, okay, good. Hardy Maurice, I got it. All right. You have a choice. All the secrets of the ocean or all the secrets of outer space.
Outer space.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. It's funny. I go back and forth, and I'm always curious. Today, I'm definitely in the outer space mode for sure. One person, alive or dead, that you could go for a run with.
I could go and spend some more time with him. I'd be
Oh,
so happy.
yeah. Was he a runner? Just curious. I
I,
mean,
I know he, there was a period where he was gaining some weight and then he lost a lot and got really healthy. So
yeah,
he was on a health mission. I'm not sure exactly how he was
right,
accomplishing it.
right. All right. Final question. Fantasy concert to attend. Well, of course, I think you maybe just indicated, would it be? Yeah, check. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm glad you brought that book out too, because you have two books, right? Um, you also wrote a book on David Baker, I think,
David
right?
Baker, yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
it's
one
beautiful.
before.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I'd be remiss. I did tell the folks at home that I would ask you to share a secret that you've never told anyone before on camera.
And I kept thinking if there's a little dirty secret.
It doesn't have to be dirty. Secrets can be fun. We sometimes do have kids watching too. I should let you know.
So, I just go overboard with that chocolate every so often.
Okay. All right. That's all right. That gives us a good now we know you like chocolate in the morning and sometimes there's a little too much chocolate. So I picture you in the corner somewhere sitting with like chocolate dripping down. You're like, don't know what's happened. Well, anyway, that's I can't thank you. It's an odd place to end the show. I know. We'll place that secret question a little bit differently next time. Monica, This has been such a treat. Seth, would you mind please tossing up the information about Monika and how folks can support her endeavors? Please send Monika lots and lots of love and support. Check out her website for all the merchandise and, of course, her upcoming performance, hopefully fingers and toes crossed, the Women in Jazz Festival in Halle, Germany in the middle of May. And the dates for that festival are on her website as well. Get this album, Eternal Dance. You will not regret it. It's a beautiful story. It features so many wonderful musicians and arrangements. Did you do all of the arrangements? Forgive me if I didn't check this. You did all of the arrangements, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really wonderful. It's nuanced, it's detailed, and it's beautiful. So thank you for that music. Thank you for the gift of you, and thank you again for coming on the show today. I look forward to seeing you again in person at 623, and I wish you the best moving forward. Folks, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you. Seth's going to toss up the graphic one more time. If you'd like to support Mondays with Marcus, of course, you can send us a little bit of your love there as well, and sign up on our YouTube channel, most importantly, so you can get all the latest updates for our upcoming guests and some videos. I post some of my own stuff up there as well. And then next week, of course, we're going to welcome the wonderful Emma Larson to the program. I'm super excited. I haven't seen her since this whole rigmarole started. So that's going to be fun. And then the last thing I wanted to let you know is that we have this feedback form. Seth's going to put in the comments section. And that's a quick, easy couple of questions. We'd love to hear back from you. What was your experience like? How did you like Mondays with Marcus? What would you like to see? Maybe some guests, some favorite musicians, artists that you'd like to see here and get to know a little bit better. We'll reach out and get them on the program here. Please spread the word. Tell your friends if you had a good time. And if you didn't have a good time, keep your mouth shut. No, I'm kidding. There's room for everyone here at the show. And thank you for tuning in wherever you are. Until I see you again next week, please stay safe, stay compassionate, and stay engaged. Have a great week, folks. Bye-bye.
Everybody loves a perfect theme song, a melody that stays inside your heart. You might have a nice show and others may think so, but if you want a great connection right from the start, then you gotta have a perfect theme song, so everyone can sing along from home. And while they are singing, the ratings you'll bring in, all because the melody is stuck in their head. You can make the bridge sound Jewish, that would be fine, long as it's familiar but newish. Everyone's falling in line, all because you got a perfect theme song, accompanying the audience for years. And when the show is over, it won't be the end, because the perfect theme song's a life-lasting friend. And speaking of friends, here's your host and MC, 'cause Mondays with Marcus is now a live stream.